Aditya Menon is a political journalist based in India who has worked with India Today, NDTV and The Quint. He has been reporting on the peaceful farmers' protest and addressed dozens of UK MPs at the Sikh lobby on human rights.
Sat Sri Akal to everyone. Since time is short, I'll make this extremely quick and make a few basic points. Since I'm a journalist, what has pained me most in these protests is the state of the Indian media. Uh, on one hand, we have journalists covering the protests who have been arrested. Mandeep Punia, a very young, promising journalist working with the Caravan magazine, he was arrested by the police from the Singhu protest site in Delhi. Then, as Aman mentioned, cases have been registered against several senior journalists just for reporting on the death of a protester by the name of Navreet Singh. Then restrictions have also been placed on independent journalists from accessing these protest sites. The police asked for some kind of a national media pass, which is there only with extremely senior journalists with big media houses. So independent journalists for some time couldn't access the protest sites. This is important because independent journalists and smaller media houses have played a very important role in providing information about the farmers' protests. Most of the channels in India are unfortunately controlled by the same big corporate players who stand to benefit from these new farm laws. Because of this, there is a conflict of interest, and the channels have been reporting in an extremely biased manner. Most of the elements within the government and these news channels have used a variety of labels to malign the protests, from calling them separatist, Khalistani, anarchist, to delegitimizing them by saying that these are only rich farmers, or these are agricultural middlemen, or that they are only Punjabi farmers and from no other state. These are some of the ways in which the media has been maligning the protests. But the question is this propaganda working or not? Unfortunately, the answer to that isn't very simple. India is a very polarized country as of now. I mean, it has been for the last 6 years, and it's further polarizing, unfortunately. On one hand, it's true that a very large section of society has been mobilized against the farm laws. And this is something that the government can't ignore. The resistance in Punjab isn't surprising because the Modi regime was never quite popular in Punjab, particularly among the Sikh community. But what is significant is the mobilization in Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, and other provinces where the BJP is particularly strong. In Haryana, the farmers are almost entirely Hindu and very strong votaries of the BJP. So they are also protesting along with the Sikh farmers of Punjab. So this is something very important that's happening. BJP politicians are finding it difficult to enter their own villages. The deputy chief minister of Haryana, he couldn't get his helicopter to land in his own village because people were protesting there. So the upsurge that is happening in some of these areas is very, very important. On the other hand, we also have to admit that Mr. Modi is an extremely popular leader, and among his core voters, particularly the upper caste Hindu voters, and a very large section of India's population has bought into the propaganda that is being carried out by the government and by the news channels which are considered close to the government. Unfortunately, many people believe that these protests are an attempt to destabilize India or to create chaos in India, and that it is the handiwork of external agencies. And the problem with this propaganda is that it can be used to justify some kind of a crackdown on the protesters. That's why what makes this particularly dangerous. But despite the government and much of the media being stacked against them, the farmers, in particular the Sikh community, have shown a great deal of courage and determination. Even in previous instances, Sikhs have been at the forefront of resisting injustice. If one speaks of the last couple of years, Sikhs stood with Muslims in their protest against the Discriminatory Citizenship Amendment Act. Many Muslim activists still remain in prison for participating in that protest. And the Sikh farmers, particularly the Bharatiya Kisan Union Ugraha group, they put up posters of all the political prisoners who are still in prison as a mark of solidarity during these protests. And when the Kashmiris were being attacked in various parts of India in February 2019, it was the Sikh community which came forward to help them. The Jathedar of the Akal Takht gave an order to all Sikhs to come out and protect their Kashmiri brothers and sisters. So these are some extremely great acts of solidarity that the Sikh community has shown, which because of which they are getting solidarity in return. The Muslim community has come out openly in favor of the protest. Many of the protest sites have langars run by local Muslims and Muslims who have come also from Punjab. So I mean, all this wouldn't have been possible without the immense goodwill that the Sikh community has accumulated. An extremely positive, though possibly inadvertent consequence of the farmers' protest has been the restoration of 4G internet in Kashmir after a ban of 18 months. This may not have been possible without the recent international pressure over the internet blockades in India. And a great deal of credit for this goes to the tireless advocacy work done by Sikh activists and their allies across the world who have really, upheld the concept of Sarbat Da Bhala. So, I mean, in the end, I can only offer you my prayers and my solidarity and Vaheguru Ji da Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji di Fateh. Thank you very much.